whole lot about people when I can hear the air conditioner running. I know you're not very noisy tonight. But that don't mean you're not saved. On your way to heaven. Praise the Lord. I won't keep you long. Is my first lie. No, I won't. But everything could get back to normal. People still vacationing and camp meeting and everything. But that's okay, you know, that happens. And I just want to read to you a little bit tonight from 8th chapter of Romans, and I'm going to read a couple of verses that you've heard a lot of times. 6 and 7. 8th chapter of Romans, verses 6 and 7. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God. For it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. Just for a little while, let's think about a carnal mind tonight in contrast to a spiritual mind. You see, a carnal mind don't obey the law because they're not subject to the law. Only when you become a Christian are you subject to the law. If you're a sinner, it doesn't do you any good to try to keep the law. Because without Jesus Christ, it's impossible to keep the law. And Jesus told us to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and strength, and so on. And then he said, love thy neighbor as thyself. I've seen rule books that are all full of do's and don'ts and everything, and if you go by what our organization says, well, you're going to be all right. But I never have read a church rule book yet that had in it, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and all thy strength, and love thy neighbor as thyself. Because when you nail that one, you don't have to worry about the rest of them. You've got a spiritual mind, and your direction no longer is towards where your carnal mind leads you, but it's where your spiritual mind leads you to. Now, the word Eden means pleasure in light. And that was when Adam and Eve were made and formed and put in the Garden of Eden. They were there with God. And I heard somebody say this afternoon. I was listening to some preaching. That they were there with God. But didn't say who else was there. You see, no matter if you're alone with God, it don't matter if you and God are communicating. There's somebody else I'd like to tell you about. I hate to, but I got to. There's a third one hanging around in the bushes, and his name is Lucifer. Lucifer is where you get your carnal mind from. And so the farther away you stay from Lucifer, and the closer you stay to God, the more apt you are to go to heaven. The more apt you are to have a good life that's worth living. But you start messing around with Lucifer, you're going to get in trouble. You might say, well, preacher, I've been saved for 35 years. I give my testimony, and I've taught Sunday school, and I think I'm in pretty good shape. I think I can handle things. You can't handle Lucifer. You can't handle the devil. Without Christ, it's impossible for you to handle the devil. So therefore, there's one thing I want between me and the devil tonight, and that's distance and plenty of it. And I don't want to go in his territory, because I'll tell you something else. When you get in the devil's territory, you can't win. God will keep you as long as you're on his ground, you're in his territory, or if you're forced in his territory at work where people say all the things and tell all the dirty jokes and they blaspheme the name of God, God will keep you right through the midst of it. But when you volunteer to go out into the pleasure places of the world where there's nothing but sin and no mention of God, where the whole purpose is to deride God and serve and glorify the devil, I guarantee you, you won't last as long as a feather will in fire, because you don't have that kind of power without God. And so we're supposed to flee the devil we're supposed to flee Lucifer and stay away from him. Well, Adam and Eve had it made. And the Garden of Eden started out pure and no sin. Do you know the first book of the Bible tells us of a place where there's no sin? It tells us a place where it's beautiful. A place where that you have no sickness. A place where Adam and Eve didn't know what a pain was. Of course, that's before they got married. And it's a place where that nothing went wrong. Everything went right. It's a place where God came in the cool of the evening and talked to them. It's a place where they had a garden and it was beautiful. I know I've seen some beautiful gardens, but I can only imagine what the Garden of Eden must have looked like. I can only imagine all the beautiful things that God said, Adam, Eve, you can have everything. Everything here in this garden you can have, except one thing. You know, you can have everything tonight that God has to offer in the middle of a sinful world, except one thing: you can't have sin because God doesn't offer sin. But here comes that old sneaky snake. Somebody ought to write a song about that. Here comes that old sneaky snake up there. The devil, a serpent, who had been cast out of heaven, who was out to destroy God and anything that had anything to do with God. God is out to destroy you tonight. I don't care how long you've been saved. God's out to destroy this preacher tonight. He's out to destroy me, get me discouraged. He's out to shut my mouth up. And that might be the biggest job he's going to have. But nevertheless, I thank God that when it's open, I want it to praise the Lord. I mean, when this mouth ever goes silent, it won't be because I was praising the devil. Not because I was taking the name of God's in vain. I wasn't taken out here into some old stupid jokes and stuff like that and brought into it and ha ha ha, all that stuff, and last for about a minute. And just as soon as that is gone, you're just back to a state of misery. But Adam and Eve had a garden. And that garden was watered and well kept, and it grew, and they had everything they wanted. Do you know, folk, today in America, we could have everything a heart's desire. There'd be no wars, there'd be no killings, there'd be no hatred, there'd be no envy, there'd be no strife, all except, even though we've got God, and He's so glorious in His power, in His majestic being, and we love the Lord, and He loves us, but there is one thing that the church of God cannot have and stay pure, and that is sin. You can't fall in love with Lucifer. Do you notice how television, from Andy Griffith to Three's Company or whatever it is now, 2.5 Men I've heard of, I don't know anything about it. What little I saw it one day going across the stream, I don't want to know anything about it. They said 2.5 Men. I'm telling you what I saw, there wasn't one good man in a whole bunch. They wasn't, you know, that could stand up and call herself a man. You don't do your children that way and bring up a child in that environment and then stand back and say, I'm a man. But you're not anything but a creepy crawly snake under a leaf somewhere trying to find a little momentary pleasure. I'm saying tonight that we had better abstain from the world and have we are in the world and we're